We just got some massive geopolitical news that's sending the cryptocurrency market into a tailspin. After a pretty nice morning and the entire market pumping, we have just entered into something that could be a new black swan scenario. In this video, I want to cover what this black swan is and how likely I think it actually is to playing out. Guys, there's a lot of panic in the market right now, and I want to talk about how it impacts XRP over the long run. Like always, your support means so much to this channel. Thank you to everyone who takes the time to like these videos and subscribe to the channel. These two simple things really do help me out so much. Also, if you have any good place to buy some XRP, make sure to check out my favorite exchange uphold down in the description of this video. With that said, let's jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoy the content. I want to start this video off and really focus on what the news is, how it's impacting the price in the short term, and what I think it means for the price over the long run. So make sure to stick around to the end of the video, because a lot of my thoughts in the short term don't really play out into what I think the long-term implication of all of this is. Now, unless you're living under a rock, you probably know that, as always, tensions are high in the Middle East. But specifically in the last hour or so, we've seen a huge impact on global markets because essentially President Trump put out a post saying that everyone essentially in a certain portion of Iran should evacuate immediately, signaling U.S. involvement in this war. Now, I'm going to try to stay pretty neutral in terms of the political things behind all of this, because I know everyone has a different opinion on everything going on here, and I want to stick it as close to being market-centric as possible. But the first thing we really do need to evaluate is U.S. involvement. Now, right now, you don't have to look very far to see Trump getting a lot of pushback from his base on U.S. involvement. One of the things Trump very clearly ran on was no wars, and this is potentially creating some big issues for him in terms of support from his base. Now, one of the most logical things I've seen put out there is that Trump really put out this post more so to gauge his supporters on whether or not this is something he's going to be able to pull off. Personally, I do think Trump wants to be involved here, but I'm not sure if he really thinks that he can do it from a political standpoint. He is getting a ton of pushback on this right now, especially from his core base, who voted under the assumption that the United States was going to stay out of provoking these wars. Now, like I said, regardless if you think the U.S. should get involved or shouldn't get involved, this is the calculus going on right now, and these are some of the most obvious things that we are seeing in terms of the decision-making process. Something else that a lot of people have put out is that this is more of just a negotiation step, right? Make Iran think something big is coming so they come back to the bargaining table. Now, where that stands, I'm not sure, but the market is reacting to all of this happening right now under the assumption that the likelihood that the United States gets involved in this war is higher than ever. And I think that's a fair assumption based off of some of the escalation we're seeing right now. I think, in my opinion, I would much rather, for the short term, the United States stay completely out of this thing, especially when it comes to the effect on markets in general. This is going to cause a huge hiccup and global disruption. If the United States is actually heavily involved, there's going to be a lot of things changing that are not going to be pro-growth, pro-cryptocurrency, pro-markets, takes all the attention off a lot of the things we've been fighting for on the cryptocurrency side and puts the attention on something that I would hope, and really do hope moving forward, gets handled from a diplomatic standpoint rather than a military force standpoint. Now, just taking a look at what's happening in the market right now, obviously we're seeing a sell-off on this news. XRP had a great morning, was pumping massively. Seemed like all the fears were kind of shaken off, and now we're kind of entering into a big dip as the world waits for uncertainty on what that next thing to drop is. Now, if we're just taking a look from a little bit more of a zoomed out perspective, what we can see is, right, we're still up from Sunday. So it's not like this is some Armageddon global sell-off kind of scenario yet. The market's just saying, okay, what's going on? We're going to do a quick flight to safety. Now, this is really a zoomed in chart still. If we're to look at the more macro landscape for XRP right now, we can see we are in this massive consolidation pattern right on top of the previous all-time high. This is a blip on the radar. this is really just some sideways trading action as we finish out this formation and push to higher highs for XRP. All of this will be forgotten about in the long run as long as things don't get overly crazy. But if things get overly crazy, I think we all know cryptocurrencies and the markets in general are all going to be going through quite a hiccup and prolonged sort of bear market scenario. But I'm still pretty optimistic we're not going to reach those fronts. And the main reason is because so much of the American base is against any serious involvement. Everyone is against any kind of interaction and the United States carrying out any more endless wars. And I think that's going to be a really tough thing for Trump to be able to manage when it comes to getting involved in the war, because so much of his base voted for him based on the fact that there would be no involvement. But this is clearly going to be a sticking point moving forward and a potentially huge issue for making progress and coming out of a lot of the ramifications of COVID we were really doing a good job of rebounding from. Like I talk about on the channel almost every day, inflation has come to a much better point. Growth is still looking really good. The tariffs seem to kind of be going away in terms of overall concern. And I want to talk quick about that because this could potentially be a very similar thing. It's really hard to gauge nowadays what's posturing, what's real, what's the media blowing things out of proportion, what's not. Tariffs were a great example, right? Everyone said that tariffs were going to be some Armageddon scenario for the United States. We're going to have hyperinflation. We're going to go into a depression. And none of that happened. We kind of just moved past them. And now we're making a whole bunch of money from tariffs and we're yet to see any effects of inflation. This could potentially be a very similar thing. This could be something that the market reacts to in the short term. And then next thing we know it, this entire issue is completely gone. That's what I'm hoping for, because this is not one of those things that is really like, oh, well, let's just see what happens. I think everyone should be praying for as little destruction, death, and demolition as possible. And if that can be done via a diplomatic solution rather than through a show of force, that is what I think is going to be best overall in the short term. But a lot of that is likely already out of our hands. And honestly, the decisions might have already been made. We'll see how Trump takes a lot of the reaction to his post. I really hope he looks at it pretty deeply, because I think what he'll see is a lot of people who voted for him are outstandingly and outspokenly against this. But I don't want to beat a dead horse on that. The more important thing I really want to cover at the end of this video is just what this means moving forward when it comes down to XRP. And I think this is actually a very interesting take. And I don't want to get into like, oh, this is good for XRP. Like we want to see war. No, not at all. But one of the biggest bearish scenarios for XRP is global harmony. A single asset like the US dollar becoming a global reserve asset for every single country, right? The entire world just getting along, low tensions, and everyone just saying, you know what, we trust the United States. You know what, we trust this country. There's no need for a neutral protocol. There's no need for decentralization. We all trust each other. We all get along. We're all on the same planet. We all can put aside our differences and conduct business with one another without really needing to worry about nefarious actions on the other side. Every single day, I think we move further away from that reality. And to a certain degree, it's kind of unfortunate, right? Because it typically means higher tensions, more global uncertainty, more risk, more fear. But from the perspective of an asset that is designed to solve these things, from a protocol that looks to make it so you don't have to trust one another to do business with one another. You don't need to rely on someone else. You don't have to count on someone else. You don't have to trust someone else's value. You can just use your own. Having a decentralized neutral protocol is literally the solution to a lot of the monetary things that we're seeing right now in the world. Pretty soon, countries are going to be freezing other countries' assets, just like we saw in the whole Russia situation. Pretty soon, this financial system, different tools in the financial system like SWIFT, are going to start being levied against countries. And certain countries won't be able to access critical financial infrastructure. This is the entire vision of what blockchain technology looks to solve, because it understands that us humans can't seem to be getting ourselves away from these global conflicts and really weaponize different things against each other. What blockchain technology does is makes it so no one can actually do that, right? We're all on the same neutral playing field and just code in between, allowing us to exchange value. So I do think overall what this does is it paints the picture that doesn't really matter how good of a centralized system you can build. Eventually, someone's going to own it, someone's going to have the power, and it's going to be levied against someone else. It's the exact thing David Schwartz said a long time ago. It's better to have no king than a single king. When there's a single king, when there's a single controller, someone can levy the system against everyone else. And ultimately, that's what happens. No matter what we do, no matter what we vote for, we always end up in this situation where suddenly someone else's interests take hold, and that's the new agenda. That's the new narrative. That's the new thing happening. We all just have to agree to it. Blockchain technology is the out from that world. The way to say, you know what? No, that's not how it's going to work. We're just going to trust code. We're going to trust the fact that value should move freely between any single person without any single intermediary being able to take it over and weaponize it against people. That's the world we're heading into, because that's the world of the internet today. You and I can get all this information and learn about this situation because we have access to the internet, we have access to X, we have access to the information at our fingertips. That's not the case with money right now. And that's the biggest thing that's going to change out of all of this. So at the end of the day, what do I think this is? I think it's posturing. I think we probably move past this, and it's nothing more to drive people to the negotiating table one more time. Do I think things are pretty serious right now? Do I think we're pretty much reaching a breaking point where something has to happen? Absolutely. And it's very clear that a lot of this is really boiling over. But I think Trump is going to look at his base and realize this is not something that really makes sense for him to take on. And whether it's behind the scenes support or whatever, I think he's really going to try to hold the United States back here and make it so, however this shakes out, he's just putting political pressure on these other countries to say, hey, you know what? If this doesn't happen, we're stepping in. Don't make us step in. That's the best case scenario all around. I really do want to avoid any kind of global conflict, and I'm extremely sensitive to anyone watching this video or anyone who has family that could be implicated by anything going on here. It's a really unfortunate and terrible situation. And honestly, it's kind of weird to be making a video about the financial aspect of it all when so many more important things like people's lives are at stake. But I think it's really important that everyone stays informed in what this means over the long run, and how this implicates future investments and opportunities, and really the global growth of us as a civilization as we try to move past a lot of the different things that lead us to scenarios like we're in right now. I think a revolution in the money is critical to doing that. And I think every single day we get closer to freeing ourselves from this system that we seem to be trapped under. Thank you so much for coming. Hope you enjoyed the video. And for now, Mickle out.